Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Dr. Leadership Lounge. Hey, we have got an outstanding guest. I've been talking about this for several weeks on the weekly podcast. Thanks for tuning in. But today, extremely blessed on the show to have Allie Stark, who is the founder of Allie Stark Wellness and co-founder of Noria, a leadership and development platform and community for the new era, of living and leading. She's also a great life coach, speaker, just done all sorts of great things in her life. Allie, I am so happy to have you here today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Brent. I'm so excited to be with you today, and I think we're going to have a really rich conversation. So thank you for the lovely introduction.
You betcha. I know we will. We've met a couple times to kind of discuss this and put our topics together and things, and it's been a very enjoyable conversation. Looking forward to the day as well. One thing that I always try to do for the audience is to give you a moment to explain. I did your bio intro there, but we also just want to kind of understand Allie's journey, where you kind of came from, what brought you to where you are today. How did you land in your chair this afternoon talking on the Dr. Leadership Show? Just a little bit of background. Can you give us a little journey map on that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I have kind of this very nonlinear, circuitous pathway that I have felt really fortunate to get to follow for my career. I feel as much as I chose it, I feel like it chose me.
Huh.
And so much of it has been really through navigating different obstacles in my life that have led me to the work that I do today. So it started really at a young age. I was a very highly sensitive kid in a very stimulating world, and
to say the least, and it's not gotten any better, the world.
it's definitely gotten a little more stimulating, and I was really lucky to have a mom that was very attuned and sensitive to me. And the connection to how I got into yoga was funny. I was actually working at 13, I worked at this bakery, and we did marketing for this yoga studio, and this was in the early 90s, and we could attend yoga classes for free. And so as an early teen, 12, 13 years old, yeah. I got really into yoga. And I think that it was the first time that I really felt this sense of calm and peace, because it was really destimulating and my nervous system relaxed. And so that led me, I've had some amazing mentors in my life that led me to a married couple that were yoga teachers, and they, invited me to become part of their yoga teacher training when I was 15.
How cool is that?
And they were just so generous. So, I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to know that I wanted to do something like that. So they really just created this invitation for me. And so I was trained to teach and started teaching yoga when I was 17.
That's awesome.
And that led me through college and undergrad. I was an art student, and I got out of school, and I was still teaching a lot of yoga, and I was doing a bit of graphic design, and then I got really sick. So kind of a part of my story is ongoing chronic autoimmune illnesses. And at this point of my life, they're very well cared for. But when we were first discovering them, there was a lot of difficulty understanding what they were, navigating the Western medical system with them, et cetera.
Yeah.
And through my frustration, and I know, Brent, you were just sharing a little bit with me about you navigating some of the medical system right now with your mom.
Yeah.
But it was really through that and my frustration that I was led to a graduate program in integrative health. And I really went because I wanted to heal myself.
I think that's a key component right there. Now, I don't mean to disrupt you, but we got to fix ourselves before we can fix what's around us, right? I mean, my wife and I talk about this all the time. Get healthy internally before you try to conquer the world. It's a hell of a lot easier. Excuse me.
I think it's kind of one of the most generous gifts that you can give to the people around you is how you are taking care of yourself, working on your own personal development, healing yourself, because then it doesn't become anyone else's issues that they're solving for. But So this program it was really about holistic health and the intersectionality of mind, body, spirit, to put it in its kind of most
Basic.
basic
Mm-hmm.
forms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it had a health coaching certification that was built into it. So when I graduated, again, I had this amazing mentor who stepped in, who was a naturopathic doctor. And I really partnered with her in the initial parts of my career as a coach to offer nutritional and behavioral programs for the patients that she was working with in the more sciencey medicine
Mm-hmm.
part of things. So it allowed someone who got a diagnosis with something that was very complex to actually have a coach help support them in the behavior changes that were needed. And over time, my business really grew as a one-on-one practitioner, and I got a little bored. You'll see this as a pattern for me. I got a little bored of just working with nutrition.
Yep.
And I was really kind of digging beneath the surface at that point in time and recognizing that nutrition and behaviors are all symptoms of deeper things going on, and that drew me into the life coaching part, relationships, values, meaning alignment. My practice got big enough that I was able to hire a team that was actually like almost 10 years ago, and everyone that I hired at that point in time still works for me.
That
So I
is
hired the
so
team.
awesome. That says so much about you as an
Thank you.
individual. Yeah.
Thanks. I don't actually take that much time to reflect on that, but
You
I'm very
should.
proud. I'm very proud of it. They have a ton of autonomy. They're consultants, so they have other things going on in their lives, but it's very rich to get to watch people's careers develop and that they have that much trust in me over the years. I feel very lucky. And so I hired a team. The team is really this combination of life and leadership coaches. And as my career continued to develop and I grew businesses and I got investment for Noria and I was really helping leaders, I really have landed in this leadership coaching space from a very holistic, heart-centered place. So we help all kinds of leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives really grow and scale their businesses from a heart-centered approach. And it's a wide variety of services that we offer, whether it's strategy or building an advisory board or working on leadership skills or creating better balance and boundaries. It's pretty broad spectrum, but so much of it is based off of my own lived experience. And oftentimes I feel like I'm working through the same crap that my clients are working through. We just get that,
It's through
that's how it
experience. It's to
goes.
say,
That's how it goes.
guess what? Experience leads to knowledge, right? And the way you gain experience is by making a lot of mistakes. They always say, how come you don't make any mistakes? Well, it's experience. Well, how do you gain experience? Lots of mistakes, and the same holds true in life. You made an important point in the very beginning. You said, I think, even a spaghetti type approach or meandering, not a straight line. Let's just say it the easy way
Yes.
of your road to success. I cannot think. I'm fortunate. I've been in the business world a long time. Of course, the podcast allows me to meet just incredible people, and I don't know of anyone that is high functioning and highly successful that didn't have a lot of whys in the road to make a choice which way you go, and then another why, and then a dead end, and then turn around. The resiliency and the fear of failure and not giving in to the temptations to quit, and all those things are what make people successful. So it's really uncommon, at least in my experiences, to find somebody that just it popped and the way you went, right? It's more likely to be a similar journey to your own. And when you're going through it, it doesn't feel all that great. But when you look back, you go, I couldn't be here if that and that didn't happen. And, there's all these connection points of, the 6 degrees of separation on Kevin Bacon type moment, right? You just have so many things. If they didn't happen, it wouldn't have worked out. I lost that opportunity, but that allowed me to meet this person that then became so on and so forth. So I appreciate the background and what a great story. I'm glad the health's in line and
Thank
things
you.
are well done. We have a set metabolic health. You mentioned dealing with my mother on this stuff. Western health is about fighting symptoms and not root causes or cures. It is what it is. We're very fortunate that we have lots of pills that make a lot of little aches and stuff go away. But until we address the metabolic issues going on in America with what we eat, how our food's produced, all of these different things, people are going to fight these side effects from what we put into our bodies and what we're doing with our bodies. And it's just, I was really excited to have this conversation because you are far more an expert in this field than I'll ever hope to be. But it was intriguing to me to discuss this. So I'm glad you brought it up kind of on the journey portion of your introduction there too.
I mean, you're speaking so eloquently about multiple things. I think that as a leader and a business owner and an entrepreneur, it's hard. And there's so many times where you think to yourself, I don't know if I have the resilience or the discipline or the stamina. It's such an endurance game.
Oh, it is. It's a marathon. It ain't a sprint. There's no doubt.
And I think to your point that what often happens is you look back and when you're in it, it can feel like hell. And when you look back, it's really like, that period of time that was so challenging. It's always the breakthrough to where you get to. You just have to stay the course, and staying the course is really hard.
Really hard. Really hard.
And I think for me, it's an area where I rely on mentors and wisdom keepers and people that are older than me and have much more experience to fall back on. And I also, as my career has grown over time, I used to work in a really like solopreneur way. And the longer that I'm working independently, the more I refuse to work in a solo way. I have a team now. I have people that I delegate to and rely on for collaboration. I find that really helps hold me amidst the storm as well, because it's a lot to hold on your own.
It really is. The impetus of this show was really about, not to boil down part of your comment, but the victim versus victor attitude. It's really easy to feel defeated in this world. First of all, we've got hyper comparison because of the social media monster that's been unleashed over the last decade, where you never feel good enough. I always talk often on my weekly show about don't hang out with the Joneses. They're your enemies. Don't try to keep up with them. Don't try to aspire to be them. The Joneses are your enemies. And I call it fake book and Insta scam too. All my listeners are so accustomed to that because you're setting yourself up to feel inadequate. Let the anxieties pour over you and that defeatist state. I'll never be as pretty as Giselle. I'll never be as strong as the Hulk. I'll never be as smart as Elon. I'll never, there's always somebody smarter, prettier, thinner, fatter, whatever you want to compare, and getting your mindset right around this and finding your inner peace, right? Your comfort within yourself and trusting and believing and loving yourself is so important. And the wellness side it's a newer engagement for me. I'm the old man on the phone here. I'm a generation ahead of you, but it's funny. So I had World War II parents, so just my concept on leadership here for a second, then I promise we'll get back to this. But leadership was all about hierarchy in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. In the 90s, we started a transition. And the reason the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s were very delegation and authority and those types of things is all the leaders had come through the military in World War II. It was about a hierarchy. I do what she says, she does what he says what he does what he says, and it was led down. And those people came back, built America, became the leaders inside the organizations, and all they knew was hierarchy. That's the Jack Welch syndrome, right? Manage out the bottom 10% every year, be damned their feelings. If you've got feelings, get off my team. This is about production. Answer the phone 24/7. Let's go, go, go. The concepts and the construct of building better performance around health and wellness and mental stability and caring and those types of things have really taken off. And we can be a better society if we get some of the other garbage out of our way. But I think it's a great endeavor you're on because a lot of people can't manage this stuff. Nobody can manage this stuff alone. A lot of people don't do it as well unless they're shown kind of the way, like you were with yoga. You found something that helped you turn some of the stresses in life off. We all need to find those types of things.
Well, and I think that you're bringing up a really important concept, which is at this point in time in culture, wellness and leadership can't be separate from one another.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we can define wellness in a myriad of ways. And I think that the industry of wellness, a lot of it, I find can go a little too radical. Like wellness to me at its core is about balance and equanimity and equilibrium. It's really about everything in moderation, including
Mm-hmm.
moderation.
Mm-hmm.
It's in its simplest form. But I don't think that we can separate the two anymore, because leaders are really tasked with engaging with their team members' emotional and mental health, with larger things going on in the collective zeitgeist. With, people have a lot less loyalty to their companies at this point. They're
Oh
changing
yeah.
jobs, new
Mm-hmm.
generations are coming. So wellness is just embedded in the culture if you're paying attention. And it makes such a difference in terms of attrition and how people show up to the job and the loyalty that they have to your leadership. So it's cool, at least for me. They used to feel like really separate worlds, and watching them meld is very exciting. And it's a little bit of the wild, wild west, because what is the blueprint and
We're
the
blazing new
roadmap?
trails every day. You're right. You are
Yeah, which,
absolutely right.
I mean, that was exactly why we birthed Noria, which I co-founded, which was really like, we need a framework forward. And it lives at this intersection of leadership development, personal development, and well-being.
That's awesome. I describe myself, so I've been in leadership for 29 years. You and I discussed that a little bit. I've been in the same industry, and the industry is broad and vast, but the same industry for about 35 years. I think that I am truly a psychologist by experience. And what I mean by that is kind of touching on, I may not be a very good one. I'm not saying I'm a great psychologist, but to your point of leaders have to help people deal emotionally, physically, health, financially. Good leader. There are the leaders that are like, hey, don't bring anything to. It's not an open door policy. Don't bring anything to me unless it's something about work. And then what I've always tried to do is have a servant's type approach, and there's been great books about the servant's attitude, etc., to really let people know you truly care, to all the points you just gave a minute ago. Tenure, reliability, performance. Let's talk about execution improvements. All of these things are better when people want to be where they are, when the environment is inviting and caring, and you feel, safe space, and those types of things have been unfortunately burdened by our political systems from both extremes. So I use that word a little bit with a bite on my lip, but where you have some safety built into, I know that they care enough. COVID as an example.
Mm,
Now it's like, if you don't feel good, you don't come to work. What it was when
right,
I was cutting my teeth, you better be
right.
dying. I need a doctor's note. Show me the scar. You know what I mean? And today, it's a much better place. Now, you still have to manage those people that are workaholics or so OCD they can't sit still. I can't take naps because I have this fear of failure. I should be helping somebody. What's going? I'm not doing my job. And it's something I need to work on. But this intersection that you talk about could not be more poignant. And leaders need to lean into this type of stuff. I'm a big believer. When we were fortunate enough to be connected, I was very excited because I've done a few things on wellness, some things on philanthropy and helping others and those types of things, but hadn't really focused into personal well-being.
Mm,
So this is just awesome stuff. I couldn't be happier with the agreement to come on the show. Um, you,
thanks, Brent.
we also discussed it a little bit. There's also a spirituality type component. Yoga is a
Hmm.
spiritual type approach, and I think that people that meditate, and yoga has some of those concepts involved with it too. Buddhism, Sikh religions. There's a lot of religions that can have more of a spirituality type approach as well. What are you seeing in today's leadership communities the tie-in of wellness and spirituality. Are you seeing people leaning in and feeling that it is something that they want to go on the journey with you? Is it still something that you feel is developing? Give me your thoughts around that.
Such a great question. And I'm thinking about, you had brought up some stuff around Instagram and Facebook that maybe I'll circle back to in
Yeah,
this.
please do.
But I find that by the time people find me or either one of my businesses, there has been some opening, some door that's been opened, some personal development that has taken place. It's infrequent that someone, who's kind of never opened the door to
Never given a
Pandora's
thought
box.
suddenly engages. Yeah. I get you.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think that spirituality, I really believe it's a choice. So I think that there's this opportunity when you're leading where you can take everything exactly at face value, and it can be, just sort of like we're doing A plus B equals C, or you can open the aperture up a little bit more and see if there's a larger meaning, a larger purpose, or a way that you can be of greater service.
Mm.
And I think, I don't really relate to it from a religious context at all, especially in the workplace. I think it's really this opportunity of saying, does the universe have my back in here? Is there something that I'm being led in the direction of that's greater than me? Are there signs or
is there a
symbols
gravitational pull to something? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that what's so cool about taking that approach is it often leads you in a really different direction that's much more aligned, but you would have never gotten there yourself if you were just using intellect. So
that's why they call it an epiphany, right? I mean, it's all of a sudden something happens that a light comes on.
Maybe another way we can relate to it other than spirituality is, so oftentimes business is like the language of the head, right? It really lives in and we're really rewarded in our culture for being highly intellectualized human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you go really far and swing on the side of deep wellness, which can be very wooey, it's sort of all of that space of the gut and intuition and mysticism and all that sort of stuff. And I think that there's this unique place in leadership where it can be the language of the heart. And it's really where your head and your gut meet. And I think that has its own spiritual component to it. And at least in my experience, when I work with leaders,
mm-hmm.
they're almost always working through, they're healing something in their own leadership. So it could be a confidence issue. It could be something that's connected to their childhood, not being included or picked
insecurities.
on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Deep
exactly. And
right.
It shows up in it shows up like it's
Absolutely.
always going to show up in your leadership. So I think that we could use different terms for it. We can use leadership or owning a business as a spiritual calling. It could be a language of the heart. And, and I'm hoping as I'm articulating myself, I really live kind of in this middle zone where I like to tell people, if you want to hire like a super wooey coach where we're going to talk about your astrology the whole time, I'm not the right gal for you. And if you want an executive coach where we're really just living in your head, I'm also not.
You're the middle in the Venn diagram, right?
I like being a bridge.
Yeah.
I like being a bridge for people. I really like opening up their minds to what's possible and then kind of letting them go out. If they want to go into a deeper dive, I can be a resource for that. But I really like bridging people into something bigger than what they thought was possible.
That's outstanding. I've always tried to consider myself kind of a fixer, right? And I guess not trying to compare to how you are at all in that, but I'm thinking about myself as you're describing these things and talking about these things. And I think that's something I love to see other people succeed and help them get there, whether it's a mental obstacle they need to get over, whether it's something in their past, an insecurity, a confidence, a knowledge base, whatever it might be, hooking them up with the right people. Let's face it, there's 8 billion of us on this planet. None of us are doing it alone. So just by who you know and how you can make connections can really help people. And to your comment on leaders that are, and you called them what, Louie? Really, what did you say? Leaders that are really
What did I say? Leaders that are really,
I thought
I
you
don't
said
know what I said.
Louis is what I thought you said, but that
Oh, no, not Louis, wooey, wooey, like woo woo.
oh wooey. Now I'm with you. I'm sitting there going, man, I think I'm pretty well rounded, and I don't know what that term is. So I see it. So I work around. Everybody has a boss. I have a boss, and he has a boss, and she has a boss. Right? Everybody reports to somebody, and it's just the reason I'm saying it this way is I see a lot of different leaders, and you can see when you can almost diagnose what their problems are or what they're holding on to. If they have narcissistic behaviors, it's typically because they're very insecure. It's like bullies. Bullies are the most insecure people in the world. They aren't the strongest people in the world. They're
Yep.
the weakest people in the room. And once you kind of understand this, it's easier to work with and work around or help build bridges and things when you understand the psychological aspect of it. You got to let them play their game a little bit, but you got to manage to it, to get the best out of everybody. And everybody has a different set of circumstances they're dealing with or legacy things that make them what they are, right? There's been a lot of ingredients that's gone into the porridge of each and every one of us of who we are. Lots of experiences, some good, some bad, some indifferent, but you have to know how to kind of read people, I'm assuming, in your role to see what you need to work on that they don't even know to say they need work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you're talking about the coach approach. So I would say reading people can sometimes feel a little bit challenging because it's a little bit like I think you can be born with that or not
Mm,
versus the skill of coaching is really much a learned skill and it's about attuning to other people, right? So
mm-hmm.
it's just about I'm slowing myself down enough. I have enough self-awareness. I'm actively listening to what this person is saying and I'm able to attune to their body language or the words that they're sharing, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an essential tool for a leader. It
Agreed.
is, and that can be in both a group format. Like I think it's so cool when you walk into a room and there's an energy in a group and you're attuning to I'll give you an example. So I give a decent amount of talks at this point in time digitally. And
Mm-hmm.
Brent, I got to tell you, the energy in giving a digital
It's hard.
talk,
It's
it's like
hard.
oftentimes I don't even see anyone's face. I'm just talking to myself, and so you're trying to keep the vibe high, but there's not that visceral connectivity where
You can't feed
it
off of the environment.
sucks.
Right. Right. Yep.
It sucks. So I think that there's and just to use, a different example, let's say you work at a company and there was just this massive round of layoffs. My guess is the collective group vibe is going to be low. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to attune. You don't want to come in being super chipper and happy in those moments. You attune to the somberness and
Mm-hmm.
you show up in that space in a way that allows people to feel like you're seeing them and hearing them and empathetic to them. And attunement is it's such a core skill in both coaching, but to your point, now leaders have to be, you can kind of put it under the umbrella of a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the healthier approach almost, which I think is what we're all kind of working towards, is I'm not really trained to be a therapist. So it's much more ideal if I learn a coach approach where
Yeah.
I know my boundaries. I'm not going too deep into someone's psychology. Trauma isn't showing up in the room with us. I'm able to kind of hold the correct container for what I'm skilled at.
That's great. It's read the room. That statement's been around forever, right? I mean,
You
you
got to read the
you
room.
got to read the room. Or what's the other one I was trying to think of? And I'm sitting here and I'm going, I'm not going to come up with it right now. But you have to be able to kind of play to the energy. And then old sales training, and old sales leadership training. We had a thing called situational leadership, right? And then we also had MBWA, management by walking around. And what that
Hmm.
was going and just engaging with people in not talking about a transaction or a deal or a customer, but just engaging with them to find out what makes them click. And you use the two together. And situational leadership was really focused on personal goals of people, what drives them, why are the TED Talk, it was like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. What's your why? We've been talking about that under a different term for 30 years. Why are
Yeah.
you here? What's your motivational factor? Is it you want a new boat? You want a house? You want to educate your kid? What is it that is the outcome you're desired for, the net why? And then you drive and inspire those people towards their why because of their why. And it's a lot easier to get followership and to get people to get in the boat with you and have that energy when they feel that you understand them. You aren't going through the motions, you're going through it together. Makes people much more, the efficacy goes way up, the efficiency goes way up, the execution goes way up, tenure goes higher, all the good things come from it. And some people think that, well, there are some leaders in my organization, my day job, that just will never be, wooey, aren't loving
Which is
people,
fine, which is great.
okay.
Yeah.
But don't put them in the people business part of the organization then, right?
Right.
Do not put these horrific personalities that are narcissistic and those types of things. I always give the example. I was a military history major in school. I wanted to be an attorney at first, start out poli-sci, and then I'm like, about the third brief I wrote, I'm going, this is way too dictated for me. This is too confined in a box. So I knew I wanted to coach in some manners. I knew I wanted to do sales. If that didn't work out, I was going to fall back on a military history type degree. But it was always in the best interest to find what inspired people. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but always looking to understand how to coach people. Oh, I know what my comment is going to be. Because I was a military history major, and I'm talking about followership. You may not know this, but as many sergeants, squad sergeants, or group in the military in Vietnam were killed by American serialized bullets in their back than Viet Cong bullets in their front. And it was because of followership. The people would not go over the hill with them. They were so bad at leadership that people were just like, no one's ever going to know. Let's just take the guy out, right? It was the leadership spectrum moved so much during that period because that's when it started to change from the hierarchical. That's a tough one on a Wednesday.
You got there.
I got there. Ooh, I had to slow it down, hooked on Pahonics. It started that change. And today, as a leader, you've got to understand the heart and soul, like you're saying, what makes the people tick to get the results that you want. I'm really buying what you're selling. It really makes a lot of sense to me. What do you?
And I
Go ahead.
also, sorry, I was just going to say, I want to respect the piece that you said, which is, I don't think a company is supposed to be fit like. We live in a capitalistic culture. Money has to get made. I don't think a company is supposed to be filled with only heart people. I
totally agree. Totally agree to that too.
There's a big balance that needs to get struck. And as long as you can find a shared language for everyone and there's kindness and humanity at the forefront, I'm totally cool with, people who are like straight numbers or very analytic. Like businesses need that. And to go back to your point about, that's also people's why. Some people, it's like their why is just like, I'm amazing at numbers and mathematics.
And that's an exact science, right? 1 + 1 = 2. That's right. And exactly. 2,000 years later, we had two high schoolers out of, it was Louisiana or Alabama, approved the Pythagorean theorem. Two young ladies, and there was a story on them yesterday. Just talking about how math is perfect science, just as a side shoot here. They've come up with all the mathematicians in the world forever thought that trigonometry could not prove the Pythagorean theorem, which is the sum of the square of the two sides opposite the right angle of the triangle equal each other, right? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We all learned it way back when. And they all thought that trigonometry couldn't prove it. Well, they had a couple of young ladies in high school that were very good with numbers. That's their niche. They go, we've always been called the nerdy ones. They didn't prove it one way with trigonometry. They proved it like 6 ways with trigonometry. And it's been 2,000 years since Pythagoras came up with that. So it's very important how we need people from all scopes and all realms, like you're talking about here. You need that. I always say we need the grown-up in the room to keep us honest too, right? I have a director of finance that keeps me honest. I'm a sales guy. I'm over optimistic. Let's spend the money. Let's invest. Let's go get it. We're going to win. We're going to win. And then he goes, yeah, you can't afford to do it. And then he brings me back down the planet, and we find the go between, the middle ground there, the spot that's right for what we're trying to accomplish. But you are correct. You got to have some heavy-handed people too, and you got to have the people that are more wooey. I'll never forget the term now.
I actually think we should use Louie because it's
Louie. I'm like, God, I'm trying to come up. Is it an acronym? What am I missing here, man? Oh, hysterical. Now, you talked about this psychological thing, and hey, when this is being released, it's being recorded before a very big situation in the United States with the election. When this comes out, it's going to be after. And we had talked about, leaders manage large collective cultural events, that psychological aspect of it, and helping people deal with things. And, November 5th who knows if it's November 5th. Soon after November 5th, there's going to be, 49 or 50% of the country that thinks the world's ending because their side didn't win. Either side is not going to end the world. Everybody calm down. But let's talk about that a little bit and how you see leaders stepping into roles like that from these large cultural events and things that are going on. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm just even slowing it down because as you are asking the question, I'm reflecting on how important it is to take a moment to acknowledge the moment that we're in. And it does not matter what your own personal opinions are. It's a big moment for everyone that's living in America. It's funny. I also know plenty of people where there's almost like an apathy or a malaise around it at this point, which I think is demonstrative of something larger, that there's just been so much polarization and
we just
separation.
Want it over. Can we all just get along,
it's
right? Just get over it.
It's been going on forever.
Yes.
It just feels like it's been going on forever.
And it's going to start again November 6th for the next cycle. That's the sad thing. We're spending billions instead of feeding the hungry. We're sending billions of pages of vote for me in your mailbox every day.
Yes. But I think that, as a leader, it is not your responsibility to understand or create dialogue around everyone's difference of opinions. I think that's you're sort of opening up a not so fun wormhole. But it is your responsibility to acknowledge cultural events so it doesn't feel like you're just skipping over them, which can be as simple as, I wanted to call this meeting today to acknowledge the fact that the election's coming up next week. There's probably a lot of difference of feelings and emotions and opinions. And, all that matters is that that we are here to be a supportive space, that we all respect one another and each other's humanity. And if you need to talk about anything, my door is open. Come have a seat, right? So I think that it's, again, I go back to this place of human kindness and humanity, and that in a moment that's so charged, and there's so much to go back to your piece about, do you want to be, we have different terminologies for it, but I think you said victim and victor.
Yes.
I think, okay. So, I think that it's this opportunity of, we don't need to point fingers, especially not in the workplace. And how can we at least just acknowledge and hold some open space for how big of a deal this is and how different people are going to feel depending upon the results. And it will create some kind of ripple effect. Like, it's just inevitable. So that's something that I've been really tuning into with a lot of leaders, where it's like, you can choose to ignore it, but you're actually missing out on an opportunity
for growth, for the team too.
Yes.
We just went through this. My organization, we have people all over the country. So, and I think I spoke with you about it, but I lived in the Carolinas. My daughters are still there for 16 years. It's where they grew up. I have a number of dear friends and coworkers and companions and all sorts of things that are still and will be for years dealing with Helene. It doesn't have to be an election. Right. It could be a massive storm. It could be the Las Vegas shooting. It could be assassination attempts on political figures. It can be tornadoes. There's going to be situations where school shootings, right? All these terrible events that happen, and more net in the world, there isn't more despair and darkness than there's always been. There's always been this darkness. Now it's just 24/7 and in the palm of your hand, right? There aren't more
Right.
storms. It's now there's more Doppler radar, so we know of all the storms. It isn't more destructive in size. It's more destructive in demographics. More people live in the area now, so of course it's billions more than it was 30 years ago because you got 5 million more houses and 3 million more cars destroyed. All these things, and people can get, so this conversation about these big events and how leaders need to have this open door policy and just let people know we're aware that everyone's aware. And we just want you to understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not a team that we're on other than this team. Whatever happens
Exactly.
on the 5th doesn't affect us as we interact and go for common goals and show courtesy to each other and help each other. Donald Trump or Kamala Harris are not going to change what they're going to do based on our feelings in this afterwards. So we have to work together, be kind, be considerate, and be compassionate, and let's get our job done together. Let's keep our world, our daily interactive world, loving and caring and prosperous, right? I mean, it's just, you're going to face it as a leader, I guess is what I was trying to get to. It's going to come in some form and fashion to you. You do
And
this
I think
long
it's
enough.
and I think it's nice to say that it's like, there may be a few days or however long it is where it's not business as usual.
Sure.
Like it's just not.
A resettling.
And
That's right. Calibration happens. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that we could tie this in a little bit into just like a larger picture, which I think that we're so earnest as a culture to move on, to move faster, to get through to the next thing. And so often what actually is the most supportive way you can show up in a situation is to slow things down and give it a beat and let it reveal itself and let people, like it's such a, trite expression of time heals all wounds, but at the end of the day, it's like the more time you give things, the less reactive you are around them.
That's right. You calm down. I I can't remember who I was talking to. It was several months ago, and they were asking me about leadership and just what has happened in your career. Is anything different? And I said, that first of all, when I got in the business I got in, I thought I was going to pad my resume for a year. I was going to go off and sell stuff on a commission deal, and I was going to get a real job. Right? It wasn't the sexiest job in the world that I was jumping into, and it stuck with me, and I've been very fortunate. But when I decided to become a leader, a coach, in 1995, I never thought that I would handle things such as, a lot of my products come out of the Asian market. So we had the Fukushima, you had the earthquake that led to the tsunami that killed 300,000 people, that took out nuclear power plants in northern Japan, that shut down my factories. Then you had fires for chips and you can't get cars done right and all these types of things, supply chain disruptions. And then all of a sudden a global pandemic hits. And it's almost like, to the religious scholars out there, the Old Testament playing out. If burning frogs start falling from the sky, I'm out. It's like, what else can happen here? You didn't think you were going to sign up for that. And every one of those situations that I listed that personally affected my employees and my business, we had to bring people together and establish a calm and a cadence that the company did great things. As an example, when everything shut down, we guaranteed, the company paid people's compensation at a specific rate, commission-based people, to keep themselves alive. They made an investment in their employees the long term. A lot of companies did a lot of good things. The government did some good things during that to try to prop people up. It's going to be problems for our grandkids, but they did do the reactive measure they needed. But my net point there is, you never know what's coming down the pike at you. So you got to be resilient. You got to be willing to lean into it. I say that a lot. Lean into the problem. Don't be dismissive of it, and don't go with blinders on. We got to face the fact that this is what's happening. And the sooner you do it, the sooner that healing, that time can start that you discussed. That's my 2 cents on it anyway.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate your perspective.
It's and it's you're probably, if you're rolling your eyes, it's okay. That's why we're not on video.
I'm not though. I think that it's the I really feel like so much of the position that we've gotten ourselves in is just these radical. It's just when any approach becomes radical or
Anything of too
extreme.
much. Yeah, moderation, even moderation,
Yeah.
you said earlier. You're right. All of us, all the people that truly matter in this world, the civilians and 95% of America is in the middle third of this junk. And it's
Yes.
very unfortunate because I do it. I don't care who you vote for, what's your love interest, none of that. I just want to be nice to you. Let's just go through life
Exactly.
and having a good, a smile, man. There's enough cloudy days out there. Bring your own sunshine to life. Good gracious, you know.
So I was not rolling my eyes at you at all.
Well, that's a first. We had You talked about capitalism a few minutes ago, and this, and I bring it back because of this drive that everybody's on, right? Success and earnings, and the market doesn't respond really to business basics any longer. It responds to the news cycle like everything else. It's our markets are emotional now as well. But in our conversations, you had talked about late stage capitalism, and it's not as effective as it once was. And we had talked about also the leaders managing this downshifting towards less effort by individuals, wanting more for less, etc. Tell me a
Mm.
little bit about those concepts from Allie Stark's perspective.
So I'll go back to this is a really great, I just read this article that I was really moved by,
Awesome.
which was titled, I'm hoping I'm going to get it right. It's something in the realm of I will not monetize my life.
Awesome.
And the woman's Substack, her name is Ashley Neese, and the Substack, I'm not remembering the name of it right now, but she was really speaking about, being in the machine of content creation, being someone who's getting paid to do content
Mm-hmm.
creation. She had other, she had the privilege and she had the privilege of being able to step away from that machine because she had other forms of income.
That's awesome.
But so much of it that I was reading and just finding, it was very vulnerable because she talked really about the cycle of, it created this cycle of like self-worth, proving self, getting money, feeling shitty, repeating the whole
Yeah.
cycle all over again,
Yep.
right? Because you really are commoditizing meaningful moments in your life, having a cup of coffee, spending time with your partner, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that for certain people's businesses, it's essential for them to survive. And so I'm aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what we're seeing though is a failing system of late stage capitalism. And I want to be really clear, I have for-profit businesses.
Yeah, you're a
I have to
capitalist.
make
It's okay. That's right.
I have to make money just like everyone else. I didn't come from,
Silver
a
spoon.
wealthy
Right.
family.
That's right. That's
Exactly.
right.
Like, so there's that part feels really important and very, I say it from such a place of humility.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's this other way to do it. So I could present this information in two ways. One is sort of, being anti-capitalist, which is actually not the approach that I take. And the other one is this approach that I do take, which is called the feminist economy. And I did not create this concept. I'm actually forgetting the name of the woman who did, but I would be happy to share it with you if you want to add it to a resource.
Yeah.
But late stage capitalism is really focused on masculine principles. And we're talking about some, again, it's like the ideal energy is the intersectionality of equal parts masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just real far on one side of masculinity, which is hyper individualism and competition and greed and all of that sort of stuff. And the feminist economy is there's enough to go around.
Mm-hmm.
There's not scarcity. We can be in an abundant place. We can share and collaborate and be interdependent and have time for balance and well-being. And I think that that's what I'm most interested in, is that there's a different way for us to be in relationship with money and with capitalism
Mm-hmm.
that helps support way more people, and that puts us back into a place with a little bit more balance. So I am a strong believer, if you work hard, you should be able to earn, a really nice living.
Living.
And I
Yeah.
also think, that there's so many extremes where we have this wild wealth division
Mm-hmm.
of extreme poverty
Mm-hmm.
and exorbitant
Wealth. Right.
wealth, an
Mm-hmm.
amount of wealth that no one needs to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, again, I'm hoping, I'm like really enjoying this, Brent, because I'm sure like we come from really different backgrounds and generations. And, I'm like, the whole point I'm trying to get across is like, we are sort of living in these extremes. And how do we actually find our way
How do we find the
back into
middle?
a place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the moderation
Yep.
and equanimity and feeling of, equality in just a way more balanced, easeful
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I relate to late stage capitalism, is not that capitalism itself is broken, but that we can do it in a much more
Yep.
thoughtful,
Yep.
informed, less fear-based way.
And just so you know, I'm buying what you're selling. I am older, and
Oh, great.
I do come from a very conservative background, a private business owner. My dad, World War II veteran, so the masculinity side, right? My mom is 95, so homemaker was the job for 99% of them. And this change takes time. People want it as fast as possible. I'm not making excuses for why it's not happening fast enough, but I am going to give you my thought on why it takes time.
Please.
Is for 60,000 years, masculinity was and heavy masculinity was a desired state by the female, by the feminine side of the yin and yang, because it was safety, it was providing, it was shelter, right? There was very distinct things that both sexes did at that point. And it's thousands of years of evolution have that so deep in the molecular core of both males and females in our environments that it's going to take a while to get there. It's not going to take 60,000 years to reverse it, and we don't want to reverse it. Masculinity is good, femininity is good. There are differences for a reason. We were designed
Yep.
by whatever it was with those reasons, but we need to understand that equality is important. I'm not an equity fan. The term bothers me a little bit because I
I understand that.
I want merit associated with it, right? So if the two
I
words are side
understand
by
that.
side, right, then that's really, really good. I am very empathic. I am very caring. My wife and I are very giving. This isn't trying to pump up Brent Taylor here, but also I know that my wife and I are in our financial position because we worked our asses off. And
Of course.
we
And
didn't take
and
no.
you should be
That's
rewarded for that.
exactly right. But I also know that and Elon Musk or Berkshire or Warren Buffett or whoever you want to put as the examples here, these hundreds of billions of dollars. You're right; they don't need that wealth. Warren's going to leave it to other helpful entities. They say $30 billion or $40 billion would cure the hunger problem in the United States or the homeless
Oh
problem in the
my
United States
gosh.
forever. Now, we are
It's so
sending to proxy
crazy.
wars that equivalent on a monthly basis, and we don't want to invest in what you and I want, health and happy, right, for all people involved. Now, there's no nirvanic situation. Evil is going to be on the planet the day it ends because it was on 2 days after it started, depending on what your belief system is. It's always been there. There's always been a darkness. That's why there's dark matter and there's light matter. There's always the negative and positive charge, North Pole, South Pole. There's always these things that have to be in the room together for it to carry meaning. And I'm really deep in the philosophical side of Dr. Leadership here suddenly, but you strike on such important concepts here that we do need to continuously improve what capitalism is, and that everybody gets to. I truly want the in a rising harbor, all boats float, right? All boats rise. That's what we all want. Now, how we get there, bureaucrats are never going to get it right, and that's what we all need to understand. So that's why the merit comes in, the personal drive and those types of things, because no one's going to pave that. There's a great saying: if you're on a bad road in life, don't blame anybody else. It's your own asphalt. And it's a play on, blacktop. And
Oh, I got you. I got
you
you.
know what I mean? It is like we make choices make us. Everyone has an opportunity. My 95-year-old mother had a great saying here about 6 months ago, and it was an equity and equality discussion. And she goes, when you've been given special treatment for so long, sometimes equality feels like oppression because you're just being told you have to do the same as everyone else instead of special things. So all that's
Wow.
very complex.
That's powerful.
It's pretty
Wow.
powerful for a 95-year-old lady that was a stay-at-home mom.
Wow.
But sharp as a tack. And you just have to, again, moderation, right? All of this has a center that if we would stay close to the nucleus of what we're trying to accomplish here, man, we could really make some great stuff happen. So, man.
Yeah, and I really agree with what I think that you should be rewarded. I believe that you should be rewarded when you work hard, when you're self-responsible and disciplined and put your head down and humble and all of those things. You should be rewarded for that. And there's ways where it can just be so much more balanced.
Agreed.
Where we can just kind of strike this, because so oftentimes is, people who have less ability to work, the access points to working as hard, so much of it's connected to socioeconomic backgrounds and privilege that you were born into and educate. It's like all of a sudden we're opening up this whole other can. So it's so complex.
It is very complex. There's no doubt.
And we're not here to solve the world in this moment. We're
not in the first hour. Tune in next week.
But I even just think, I mean, Brent, I'm feeling very touched having this conversation with you, because I remember when we first chatted and, you were like, we probably have really difference of opinions, and we probably do, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I think, this is such a loving, healing conversation. It's a reminder even to myself, that if you can find a common ground, which all of us have, that's the point of, that's truly the point of real leadership and real healing and all of the things real wellness. So
awesome.
I'm really appreciating.
You said that. Well, 95% of what everybody in the world wants is food on the table, a little bit of money in the bank. They can provide for their kids, health. Everything is the same for all. We all have the same desired safety, shelter, the basic necessities. And then you get into the fringy stuff. And that's where, unfortunately, we've got it used to be, don't look up WebMD online because you're dying. The common cold's going to kill you. Now you get online and you're suddenly an expert in everything from how to fight COVID appropriately to Russia engagement, wars. So again, it's the fake book, it's the Insta-scammed. Just center yourself in a calmer space. Love on your neighbors, care for each other. It's okay to disagree. Discourse is what makes this country great, right? Finding middle ground, it used to happen that way.
And I love, I moved, and this is going to be, I moved from LA to Denver, and Denver is a diverse city. It's harder to access. It feels like a very mid-30s white outdoorsy folk. That's a sweeping generalization, but it's way less diverse than
I'm buying what you're selling. Yep, I got you.
And I love having differences of opinions in the room. I love people who don't agree with me. Because what it does is, it's similar to me. It's like whenever someone tells me that they don't have enough time to make a new friend, I'm like, are you crazy? Making a new friend opens your whole world up to a part of yourself that you would have never seen or known. And I deeply value, I would say debate is not where I go, but I like discord and a difference of opinion and an ability to have a conversation like what we're having today, where there is a sense of respect towards listening to the other person's perspective and then adding more texture to that.
And that's what's back to the leadership concept of all this. Great leaders pull all those different opinions out in the room when you're trying to make strategic decisions or directional decisions. I did a podcast on, as a leader, just how to hold meetings. Don't sit at the head of the table in a position of power suddenly because you've muted half the audience. Sit in the middle, start off with self-deprecation and humility, and I have a problem I can't solve. I need your help. I'm hoping you are willing to help me. And then make sure The quiet person in the room probably has the right answer. And you got to manage the A personalities, the ones that are always, I've got it all, salespeople I deal with, these A personalities, I've got it all figured out. Just look at me. I'm awesome. Look, I've been overplaying forever. Yeah, Jimmy, but you're an a-hole. There's other things that, that you aren't good at. Right now I need Bill's input, Beth's input. You got to draw all that out, because that's what makes the decision welcoming, and you get everyone's involvement. And then guess what? When everyone has involvement in it, guess what they do? They go out and execute on it, because they feel they were a part of designing and go. It's now theirs that they're chasing, instead of yours that they're being told to chase. And it's simplistic things like that around all of this, of giving space and air in the room to each other. We've gone real deep in a lot of different ways today, and I truly do appreciate the conversation, and I hope to have you on again, because I think we could go on and on and on about things. But I do want to be respectful for your time, and one of the last things I typically ask is just for, in today's world, you're interacting with lots and lots of different people, and you're going lots of different directions, and helping all sorts of different folks here. But if you were to take a couple minutes and you wanted to make sure you got this message out to the Dr. Leadership listeners, what would you talk about, or what would you make sure we take away from the conversation today?
Way to leave it on a big, lofty question.
That's exactly right.
If I were to take our conversation today as a lily pad that we're jumping off of, I think that, for anyone listening, and let's broaden the scope of the term leader. So leader could be that you're a parent, or you're an active member of a community or a volunteer group where you like to, stand up in your leadership. But for anyone who's a leader or a business owner or an entrepreneur, I think this moment is calling for deep introspection and self-responsibility, and really finding the skills and resourcing yourself with the tools that are needed to lead and live in a new era of doing things really differently. And that it really is that Venn diagram, as I had said, we kind of do two Venn diagrams. It's the L&D side of things, the personal development, the wellness side, but it's also this balanced masculine and feminine energy. And I think that, leaders have the power to change the world. They're the largest levers at an organization, and it's an inside out job. It's not an outside in job.
Oh boy,
so
nailed it.
So I think that that's maybe what I would leave people with.
That's great. That's great, Allie. I'll tell you again, everybody, Allie Stark Wellness and Noria are the two companies in which Allie's leading today. And as you can tell from the conversation, this lady's really, really smart and really, really grounded. And I hope you look out into the vast world of the internet, look her up, engage with her. Allie, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Our listeners are blessed to have you. And just a shout out to all the listeners out there. Take to heart what Allie brought to the table today, and just care for somebody. Go out, don't have confrontations, have carefrontations. Embrace your neighbor, embrace people at work, do whatever you want to do, but just make some sunshine in somebody's life today, and just keep being awesome. Thanks.